my talk is entitled Moneyball for Politics. Why? Politics is, it's a little bit like the Yankees. It's an unfair game. It's controlled by the big spending teams. And what are we? We're the, I don't even think we're the A's. We're somewhere between the Pirates and a Little League team. All right? So let's talk a little history. Let's go back to 1787. Let's go back to Article 1 of the Constitution. And what are we talking about here? This is how Congress is set up. And one representative for every 30,000 is what is in Article 1. 1 per 30,000. The framers wanted to, make it proportional, wanted to, keep the lower house of Congress close to the people, make them accessible, and make it easy for them to respond to the needs of their constituents. Then there's the Reapportionment Act of 1929. Fast forward a few years, and what that did was it fixed the number of members of the U.S. House at 435, despite how much the population was growing in the U.S. And what that did, it did a couple of things. So 435, population exploding, but no proportional increase in representation. Another thing that did was actually allow the political parties to create their own districts. This is one of the most gerrymandered districts in the country. So not only can representatives representing a very large segment of people, but now they're starting to be able to just pick their own constituents instead of having us do that for them. 1793, one representative per every 30,000. What do we have today? One representative for every 709,760 people about. That's how much less power you have today than you did, if you lived back in the 1790s. If we followed Article 1 and continued to increase Congress as the framers intended, we'd have between 6,000 and 10,000 representatives in Congress. That may be a little unwieldy, but at least the people in Congress would be closer to us. So this is what our democracy looks like compared to the UK, House of Commons. Greatest democracy in the world, House of Commons, one representative for every 90,000 people. A little more reasonable. For us, again, 709,000. So this creates some problems, as you might imagine. So intermediaries enter. And what does that look like today? I don't know if you can see. So that's a lot of PACs. It's a lot of unions. It's a lot of money being concentrated in a lot of special interest groups who are effectively going out there and buying votes. They're lobbying for bills, and they're drowning your voice out. Because what happens is these politicians need to be reelected, and elections have become very expensive. So their agenda is being sort of usurped by just moneyed interests, and not what you guys want necessarily. Because there's only 435 members of the lower house of Congress in the U.S., it's a lot easier for all that money to buy votes. We're talking 218 votes in Congress in a nation of 300 million people. That's all it takes. Pretty easy to target them at this point. $3.55 billion actually were spent on lobbying in 2010. $3.5 billion. Now, what does that mean? What's the return on lobbying? It's kind of tough to figure out exactly what that ends up being, but there's actually a bill in 2004 which was a giant corporate tax giveaway, so you could actually measure how much money was spent on that and what came out. For every dollar spent on lobbying, $220 back in tax benefits, a return of 22,000%. So that's what that money's buying these people. The other problem is that in this age, when you're dealing with almost 800,000 person districts, winning votes is very expensive. You cannot go door to door with 800,000 people. What can you do? It's just very difficult to achieve the name ID you need to challenge an incumbent, and the only way you can do that is something is mass media. In 2008, Congress race cost about $1.1 million. Senate, $6.5. Makes it very tough for any of us to run. So go back to 1948, and this is basically how most campaigns were run. basically most of the time up to this point. This is a whistle stop. This is Truman. But it was all about retail. It was about knocking on doors. It was about listening to people and figuring out what is it that this crowd of people, what do you guys want? Voter to voter was very important. Neighbors talking to neighbors around the kitchen table. There was newspapers, there was some of that, but mostly this is what you had. And I hope that we can get back to something closer to this, because the democracy has been pretty much hijacked. Let's fast forward to 1964.
These are the stakes to make a world in which all of God's children can live, or to go into the dark. We must either love each other or we must die.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
This is the 1964 presidential election between Johnson and Goldwater. If I was alive at this time, this would have scared the crap out of me. But television came around, in the 50s and 60s. It started to play a role in politics. When television was first around, it just took the prior medium and sort of just put it on TV. So we had guys at podiums reading speeches into the television. You had the Nixon-Kennedy debates. But what this ad by DDB Worldwide did was combine just very powerful imagery, emotional hooks. This has a neuropsychological effect on people, and this changed the election. This is the first attack ad, and ever since 1964, it's just been increasing amounts of this top-down, attack politics. 1988 was another example. This is the first example, I believe, of an independent expenditure group. This is the Willie Horton ad. But a group of people got together who wanted to support President George Herbert Walker Bush and ran this ad against Michael Dukakis. Another example of just a couple people with a lot of money changing the outcome of an election. Now, over time, mass media has morphed into something using some techniques called microtargeting. So we have the big television ads, we have the attack ads, the stuff that's just going to scare people. And then microtargeting came out in 2004 that basically combined consumer purchasing data. So the political parties and large interest groups would go out and harvest all the consumer data they could find, what magazines you subscribe to, what television shows you're watching, everything. They combine that with voter data so they could target specific messages at you. And a lot of it's also negative. So what do we have today in our political system? We basically have big donors giving lots of money to candidates. They want access, they want a seat at the table, so that part of their agenda is taken away. The candidate then goes and takes that money and spends it on big mass media, spends it on television or direct mail. And then the direct mail gets sent out there, the television goes out there, and it basically buys votes. It's a very inefficient way of doing so, but that's basically what's going on. A lot of candidates that you talk to, they don't want to do this, but that's just how the mass media age. This is how it works. This is how elections are won or lost, and if you don't do this, you just can't get the number of votes you need to win. So what do we have? We have social media, okay? So Justin Bieber, he was a kid playing guitar on YouTube, okay? The message was spread all over the world, and he made himself a superstar without mass media. The new intermediaries we have today are our social networks. Everything that's been talked about today so far, how to build online communities, this is how we can take the country back. So we get something that looks more like this, where it's about voters talking to other voters. And what's great about social media is that messages can spread virally. You can reach a lot more people, and other people can talk to their friends, and their friends can talk to their friends, as opposed to just a small meetup or everybody calling each other on the phone one after the other. We have a powerful new technology that can build communities and deliver votes to the candidates that fit our values. The tools are out there. We have to take advantage of them. That's how we disrupt mass media. Mass media is expensive. It costs a lot of money to go out and buy television. It costs a lot of money to go buy even a postcard campaign. And a local race in San Francisco probably costs between $100,000 and $200,000 just to send postcards out to people. And if this guy doesn't, then nobody knows who he is. It's a big city. So how do we deliver votes at a cheaper cost? Money will always find its way into politics. A lot of people will say we got to get the money out, we got to pass rules, we got to get rid of Citizens United. Money will always find a way into politics. What we can do is make elections cheaper to win so that we can deliver the votes to the people that we want to see elected. So let's go through. What do we have in mass media? It's a top-down, it's one-to-many. So a few people control the message. It's expensive and self-reinforcing, mass media is. So the people that, if you get the money and you spend a lot and you go down, that tends to build on itself. It self-reinforces the people already in power. And it's basically set up to do a command and control type of organization. Social media, many to many. It's all of you collaborating, talking in forums, Facebook groups. You can spread messages that way. It's cheap, it's accessible, it's more democratic. Anybody can use this technology that has an internet connection. Messages can evolve over time. New voting blocks can form based on shared interest, as opposed to a large organization telling you, this is what we're going to do. You can form new interest groups. That little those little things that you like on Facebook, you click on that. That's a voting block right there, if it's something meaningful. And social media allows people to self-organize on a massive scale that we haven't seen before. And you can't do that if you're just watching television and not out there engaging. So what else can we do? A lot of the same tools that the political parties and the big groups have been using for years, we have those now. For a long time, so the way that microtargeting stuff worked, with all the little scatter plots, where it basically took likelihood to vote versus Republican Democrat, we can use those types of tools today. So that voter data, those voter rolls, are now available to you. You can see which of your friends are voters, and you can ask them to turn out to vote. It's available to the public. All that other consumer data that's expensive, locked away in giant databases, big data still has the advantage. Those large data warehousing companies that will sell your personal data to the parties and other people, they still have a lot more. But a lot of people out here are sharing a lot of that data on Facebook. You have it. You can go on somebody's Facebook wall or go on their Twitter page, and you can see what they're interested in. They are sharing it. More and more people are sharing more and more data about themselves, and they're sharing it with their friends. You can take advantage of that. It's not just them sharing to Facebook so they can target ads back down. They're sharing it to you as well. Another nice thing, TV watching is going down while internet and social media use is increasing. So that's good news for us. And again, top-down message and mass media with social, message spreads virally. Quick plug on Votizen, okay? So it's a platform where we've taken the voter data, combined it with the social data, and you can decide where your votes are going to go. So if you have 1,000 friends on Facebook, this will tell you the 500 people that are actually registered to vote and who's likely to vote for the candidate you want. If you have a friend that's running for a local school board race or city council race, your friends probably don't know who that person is. All these local down-ballot races, name ID is critical. And how are they going to get that? If you share the values of that candidate, you should be willing to engage. If we don't talk to each other and spread the messages of candidates that we like, that share our values, if we don't talk around the kitchen table about politics, then what's going to take its place? Television and attack ads are going to take its place. You need to occupy that mind space. Just the same way, the earlier speaker talked about how people take friends' recommendations over advertising. The same thing works in politics. But we're apathetic about it. We think that the system is kind of stacked against us. And we're sometimes afraid to talk about sensitive political issues. But if we don't, then we don't have any power. So let's get going on that. How else can we take it back? I'll deliver my votes to you if. So all of you know a lot of people. You know a lot of voters. And if you build a community online, if you start a Facebook page or just, whatever it is, whatever, Reddit, whatever, but talk to your friends about the issues that matter. And then you can use that as leverage to a candidate. Whereas the mass media system basically takes money and uses it to go and buy votes, you can deliver votes. There's a woman in New York City who runs a lucha libre wrestling ring. Her name is Gladys, okay? Every mayoral candidate in New York City courts her. They seek her out, and they talk to her, and they work to win her vote. They work to win her support. Why? Because for whatever reason, she can reliably turn out 1,000 voters every time. That could be you. The tools are out there. You can be the next Gladys. There's people out there all over the place with social media followings. Start building yours, and you can have that kind of leverage. So what's still happening now? Still, donors and their agendas are most important. But in the future, what can change? New power brokers in social media are going to be the most important people. It's not going to be about who has the most money that can then take the money and go buy the votes. It's going to be about who can just deliver the votes. Cut out the middleman. Disruption. Political influence is a $12 billion industry. We can shrink it. Negative ads dominate in the mass media age. They're quick. Chuck Schumer won a 98 Senate race by running 15-second ads. Didn't even say who it was coming from. Constantly against D'Amato, and he won the race. McCain-Feingold had to stop it. Now they're 30 seconds. But those things still dominate. Negative messages work well over television, but they don't work as well in the social media age. You're usually talking about what you like about the candidate. Politicians right now are forced to satisfy donors to be reelected. In the future, satisfy you, satisfy groups of voters. Where are the power nodes in the graph, in the political graph? Who's delivering the votes? That's who they need to talk to. That could be the college student. That could be the stay-at-home mom. Doesn't have to be a rich person. Just has to be someone willing to engage. And in the future, outfriending will replace outspending. There's examples of this already happening. There's a candidate running for Congress in Oakland. She offered access. She offered a cup of coffee to whoever won the most votes for her. Usually access is based on donations, but she wanted to do something different. That's a big deal. It's a big deal because mass media doesn't ask questions. Mass media doesn't need the approval, whereas if I'm transmitting the message of a candidate to someone else, I actually have to agree. My reputation's on the line. It's a lot different than television if it's based on voter-to-voter communications. We get a better government. We get a better democracy. So in conclusion, apathy's out. I've been working against it for a long time, and I know that voter apathy is at an all-time high, and we're working against that at my company. But the tools are there now. I don't know if this year will be the big social media year. Everyone says this will be the social media year, this will be the social media year. I don't know if it's going to be this year, but the tools are out there. We got to start leveraging them. It's all there for you guys to take. Great example earlier this year, SOPA, PIPA, soundly defeated or tabled for a little while. I don't think it's actually dead. But this thing had the wheels greased for it, okay? Senator Dodd runs the Motion Picture Association of America. Millions of dollars were spent by the big media companies to lobby this thing. It was all set, ready to fast track, but all of you guys out there stood up, coordinated efforts from the internet, generated enough pressure that they just had to get rid of it, take it off the docket. So that's a victory, and we can get more of them. That's it. Thank you very much.